Hello, we are the Aztec Group. My name is Renzo Lioque from 4 ITB.
Why authentication is just as important as encryption? Understanding encryption and authentication. IT authentication basic. Authentication is the process of verifying whether a claim is true, generally a claim about someone or something's identity, by using a factor which is a secret or piece of evidence. When you sign into an email account, for example, you are claiming a statement, "I am," and verifying it with a secret, your password. Authorization comes after authentication. After you authenticate your Gmail account, Google provides you access to your email and Google Workspace files, as well as those shared with you by the other users. Because secret may be stolen or guessed, users can employ a number of strategies to make it more difficult for a bad actor to acquire access. How encryption authentication works. When securing a file on a machine that is not connected to anything, encrypted authentication is straightforward. Encrypt the file and save the key somewhere secure, ideally protected by a password. However, authentication is more challenging in cloud applications such as email encryption. This program uses public key encryption, which use two keys to encrypt and decode data. The public key is typically made public, as the name indicates, while the private key must be kept hidden. PGP email encryption and related approaches use the receiver's public key to encrypt a message sent to the recipient. They are the only ones who can decode it, since they keep their secret key confidential. Authentication versus authorization. When a person or process is authenticated, it is frequently subjected to an authorization procedure to determine whether an authenticated entity should be granted access to a protected resource or system. A user can be authenticated but not granted access to a resource if that user has not been granted authorization to access it. Although the terms authentication and authorization are frequently used interchangeably, they serve different functions. While authentication verifies a registered user's identity before granting access to a protected resource, authorization verifies that authenticated user has been granted permission to access the requested resources.
Thank you for listening. Goodbye.
Hello, we are the Aztec and my name is John Spencer Higgins. How user authentication works. During authentication, the user's details are matched to those held in a database or authorized users, either on the local operating system or via an authentication server. If the details are correct and authenticated entity is permitted to use the resource, the procedure is finished and the user is granted access. Authentication was traditionally handheld internally by the system or resources being accessed. Server would authenticate user with its own password system, which would be implemented locally and would employ login IDs and passwords. So these are the three factors correlate to knowledge factor, session factor, and inherence factor. The knowledge factor can be any authentication credentials consisting of information that the user possesses, such as personal identification number, username, password, or the solution to a reset question. Possession factor can be any credential based on objects that the user can own and carry with them, such as security token or a mobile phone used to accept a text message or to run an authentication program that can to boost a one-time password or PIN. The inherence element is often dependent on some sort of biometric identification, such as finger or thumbprints, face recognition, retina scan, or any other form of biometrics data. What is authentication? Authentication is the process of ascertaining if a person or item is who or what it claims to be. Authentication technology controls system access by comparing a user's credentials, those in a database or authorized user or data authentication server. Why is authentication important in cybersecurity? Authentication allows companies to encrypt their networks by allowing only authenticated users or process access to their protected resources. Again, we are the Uztec and thank you for listening.
Hi, we are the Aztec. My name is Jenner Jumalonto and I am from 4 ITEW. What SSL certificates do and how they do it. What is an SSL certificate? An SSL certificate is a digital certificate that verifies the identity of a website and allows for an encrypted connection. SSL is an abbreviation for Secure Sockets Layer, a security protocol that establishes an encrypted connection between a web server and a web browser. SSL certificates must be added to websites by businesses and organizations in order to safeguard online transactions and keep consumer information private and secure. In a nutshell, SSL secures internet connections and prohibits hackers from accessing or changing data exchanged between two computers. SSL safeguards the website you are visiting. If you see a padlock icon next to the URL in the address bar. Since its introduction roughly 25 years ago, there have been various versions of the SSL protocol, all of which have had security issues at some time. TLS, or Transport Layer Security, which is still in use today, was a modified and renamed version that followed. However, the initials SSL remain, and the new version of the protocol is still commonly referred to by the old. How do SSL certificates work? SSL ensures that any data passed between users and website are between two systems is unreadable. It employs encryption methods to jumble data in transit, preventing hackers from reading it as it travels over the network. Names, addresses, credit card numbers, and other financial details are examples of potentially sensitive data. The process works like this. A browser or a server tries to connect to an SSL secured website. An example, a web server. The browser or a server asks the web server to identify itself. In response, the web server delivers a copy of its SSL certificate to the browser or a server. The browser or a server determines whether or not it trusts the SSL certificate. If it does, it notifies the web server. The web server then responds with a digitally signed acknowledgement, allowing an SSL encrypted session to begin.
Hello, we are Aztec. My name is Jay Kunogot from 4ITV.
Encrypted data is shared between the browser or server and the web server. This is commonly referred to as SSL handshake, and while it appears to be lengthy procedure, it is completed in milliseconds. The term HTTPS, which stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secure, appears in URL when a website is secured by an SSL certificate. Without an SSL certificate, the only letter HTTP will show without the S for secure. In addition, a padlock icon will appear in the URL address box. This conveys trust and reassurance to individuals who visit the website. Why you need an SSL certificate? SSL certificates are required for websites in order to safeguard user data, validate website ownership, and prevent attackers from building a false version of the site and express trust to the users. Types of certificate. SSL certificates. SSL certificates are classified as encryption and validation as well as domain number. They are classified into three types and may be applied for an SSL website. A certificate authority (CA), which is software created particularly for running and providing these certificates, processes certificates. These are three types of encryption and validation certificates: domain, organization, and extended validation. These are the types of certificates indicated by the domain number included single, multi-domain, and wildcard.
Again, we are Aztec. Thank you for listening.
Hello everyone, we are the Aztec. I'm Roshin Mangana. An SSL certificate helps to secure information such as login credentials, bank card or bank account information, personally identifiable data such as complete name, address, date of birth, or phone number, legal papers and contracts, medical data, and property information. What is TLS? TLS is based on SSL and was created as a replacement for known SSL-v2. Close SSL as the most often used word, and it now typically refers to TLS.
Hello, we are Aztec. My name is Hazel G. Batino. Organization Validated or OVSSL Certificate. This certificate certifies the legitimacy of your company and domain validity. Organization Validated or OVSSL certificates are obtained in two phases and provide a medium degree of encryption. First, the CA would determine who owns the domain and if the organization is lawfully operating. Users would see a little green padlock in the company's name after it in the browser. If you don't have the financial means for EVSSL but still want to provide a reasonable level of encryption, use this sort of certificate. Domain Validation or DV Certificate. A green padlock next to the URL in the address bar indicates a low degree of encryption provided by the Domain Validation Certificate. This is the quickest validation available, and it requires only for a few corporate papers to apply. When you add a DNS to the CA, this verification occurs. The CA will verify the applicant's right to own the domain being submitted for this certificate. Note, the DVs only safeguard the domain itself, not the subdomains. Again, we are Aztec. Thank you for listening.
Good day. We are the group Aztec. My name is Enrico B. Escalona. As a group of IT consultants, how will you choose the right level of validation to a certain organization or company? As an IT consultant, to verify the level of validation of a company is first, I will check the logical argument of the company. Secondly, we will conduct an inspection in the system of the company. Third is, I will check the modeling and simulation of the company. And then the next step is going for an analysis, followed by review of other IT experts, which followed by test and evaluation. And last but not the least is the demonstration. So again, we are the Aztec and thank you for listening.